are 572-0383 and 572-0215. Rev-Up St. Lucia, the alpha of radio.
Join the United Workers' Party this and every Thursday on Rev-Up St. Lucia 97.1 FM for an educational and informative program, Meet the Opposition. Participate in exciting discussions from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Be in the know every Thursday on Rev-Up St. Lucia 97.1 from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
It's now time for Meet the Opposition, hosted by Lenard Spider Montoute. Mr. Montoute, welcome.
Yes, good morning, Andre. Good morning to all our listeners and viewers, especially those of you in the diaspora who continue to be with us throughout. I mean, I admire and appreciate the interest that you still retain in your homeland, your country, St. Lucia. I want to say a special good morning to all St. Lucians. I hope you have had a good week so far. I hope you had a good holiday weekend. And of course, as wishing you a good weekend to come. Today, as always, on Meet the Opposition, we're going to be providing you with enlightenment as to what is happening in the politics of St. Lucia. But I have a very special program for you today, and what makes it so special is the special guest that I have in studio with us today. And unlike what happens normally where I begin my program with discussions on various topics, the topics may come, but I want to give my guest as much time as possible because I find my guest to be very interesting and there's a lot that I want to find out from him. But have no fear, as usual, as always, you will have your opportunity to call in, to ask questions, make suggestions, and of course, most importantly, to pledge your support. So, today, let me just say, I know that those of you watching on Facebook, YouTube and whatever, you'll have seen the pictures, and some of you will have had an idea already. Now you notice my guest is dressed in a yellow top. I am in blue. That is not symbolic of the situation that exists as far as what will unfold during our discussion. I just coincidentally happened to be in blue this morning, and well, it's not because Andre said to me he wanted balance, but but let's get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. I have in studio here a very special guest. That is Mr. Stephen Favrier, who is the endorsed candidate for the United Workers' Party, who will be contesting the next election in the Castries North constituency. Now, there's quite a lot. This is his first outing in the realm of politics. There's quite a lot I want to know about Mr. Favrier, and I want Mr. Favrier to tell you about himself. Now, before I introduce Mr. Favrier in terms of hearing his voice, I want to read to you a short bio just to give us a brief introduction as to who it is we are talking about. By the time I'm done, you'll realize why I refer to him as a very interesting guest. Okay, Mr. Stephen Favrier was born and raised in Summersdale, Castries. Of course, Summersdale is in the constituency of Castries North, and has spent his career serving his country on the global stage. He began as a Foreign Service officer in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, that's what it was at the time, launching a distinguished path in international diplomacy and trade. He went on to serve as ambassador and permanent observer of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States to the United Nations in Geneva, representing the interests of the Eastern Caribbean at one of the world's most important diplomatic arenas. He doesn't look like it. He doesn't look like he is even 20 years old as yet, but he has over 20 years of experience in trade policy development and negotiation. Mr. Favrier has held numerous senior advisory roles in Geneva and the Pacific region, providing strategic counsel on global trade matters. Most recently, he served as senior advisor in the cabinet of the Director General of the World Trade Organization, WTO, and has made notable contributions to publications on international trade and the blue economy. Mr. Stephen holds a bachelor's degree. Well, just to give you an idea of his educational background, Mr. Stephen holds a bachelor's degree with honors in political science from the University of Western Ontario, a law degree from the University of London, and a Master's of Law in International Commercial Law from the University of Westminster. Now, with a proven track record, he is ready to bring his experience, dedication, and passion home to serve the people of Castries North and by extension St. Lucia, committed to transparency, good governance, and inclusive development. If you don't mind me calling you Stephen, Stephen stands prepared to be a strong and effective voice for his community and country. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome Stephen Fevrier to Meet the Opposition, as you will have an opportunity today, this morning, to meet one of the members of the opposition who will be doing battle in the constituency of Castries North for the United Workers' Party, and that is Mr. Fevrier. And Mr. Fevrier, welcome to Meet the Opposition. I think this is your first time here on Meet the Opposition. And maybe I'm in a position to tell you welcome to politics as well. So
thank you very much, Spider. It's really truly an honor to be on your show. I must confess that I have been following you and Nancy for many months now on Rev-Up and Meet the Opposition. So it is indeed a privilege and an honor to be here with you. Let me also recognize Andre Paul, who I've also had the great privilege of meeting this morning, and thank you for hosting us. But beyond you,
You're welcome,
Andre,
sir.
Beyond you and Andre, let me say a special, hearty good morning to listeners, both here and abroad. But in particular, let me shout out Castries North, the entire constituency from Agard, Sunny Acres, Laclery, the length and breadth of the Castries North constituency, which happens to be the best constituency on the island. Let me send my love and my blessings to you. But before we go into business today, if you would permit me, and on a more somber note, allow me to express condolences to Ursuline and her family from Upper Montoute, who are still grieving the loss of Francis Lewis, who was a very close family friend. I had the opportunity to condole with them yesterday, and of course the hurt is tremendous. It's a difficult time, and I just want to share with you my love, share with you my solidarity with you at this moment of difficulty. I too have been through in more recent times my own difficult moment with loss. So I just pray that God will continue to bless, guide you, and hold you through this difficult moment. Let me also express the condolences to Kathleen George Louise's family, another resident of my constituency of Agard, a young lady who lost her life a few days ago at the relatively young age of 49. Let me also share my condolences and say to you that I'm thinking about you. I will continue to hold you in my prayers, and we will continue to hold close the memory of Kathleen as we go forward. So with that, I hand over to you, Spider.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. And of course, I understand you have to, express your condolences to your constituents. And of course, you said they're also close friends of your family. Now, I want to get right into the politics with you, Stephen. I mean, I read your bio. I've heard some about you. Mm-hmm. And I asked myself, senior diplomat at the WTO in Geneva, what are you doing here? Why did you choose to enter politics? And why the United Workers' Party? Can you tell our listeners?
So no slow balls. You're going with the bounces immediately. Look, I grew up in a home with a family, with a mother and a father who had committed themselves to service of people, to service of the community. And whilst it is true that I was never instructed specifically to give myself to service, I believe I've learned from their example that service to people, service to community is the highest calling that we could have. I mean, you could achieve great things in different professions, whether it be, business, law, whatever vocation, and of course these things are important. But if one wants to have an impact, a meaningful impact, I think you can focus on how do you use your efforts, your energies, your talents to uplift and improve the lives of people. And for me, that is what I saw with my family, particularly my father, Joseph Avery, and my mother. And I think that maybe that has been hardwired in me. And my first opportunity to serve was with the government. And then, of course, from there, I had an opportunity to serve in various regional and international positions. And for me, serving my country, serving people, being focused on how my efforts could be deliberately targeted at enhancing the lives of people, for me is the highest calling. So it's not a sacrifice, it's an honor. It's a real honor because I believe in this country. I believe this is the greatest country in the Caribbean. I think we have the potential to be one of the most beautiful and successful countries on the planet. And I think for that, you need leadership, you need commitment, you need people who care about the country, the people of this country, and not themselves. And that's why I'm here.
Well, that is impressive. I mean, given that your motive is service, I'm happy to hear that because I was about to say to you, if you had said you came to make money, I was about to tell you that politics is not the place to be. Those who make money in politics, there are many big question marks about them. And you will not often hear me quote the Prime Minister, Philip J. Pierre, but he said, if you come into politics poor, there's no way you're going to, I'm not going to invert him, but in effect, there's no way you're going to come out of politics rich. And Dr. Anthony, a former 3-time Prime Minister of St. Lucia, has also indicated that you cannot accumulate wealth in politics. So, before I go on further, I just have to explain to you why I have a lot of questions about some of the current politicians who have suddenly amassed the wealth that they have, especially in the last 3-4 years. But obviously that doesn't apply to you, and you're well intentioned, and that is what politics is about: service.
Mr. Montoute, yes. you also asked him why he chose.
Why? That's right. No, Andre, you sharp. So, you can tell the difference. You can tell who is the journalist. So yes, you can escape that question.
I wasn't trying to avoid the question. In fact, I welcome the question. Look, when I look at the two parties, I think there are 3 things which really impress me about the United Workers' Party. And I think those 3 things are also critical for the development of the country. The first thing, and I think this is fundamental, is good governance. Now, whilst I may not agree with everything Kenny Anthony, you just invoked his name, would have said during his time, and I don't agree with all of his policies, I think the linchpin of his administration was about good governance. He tried. Maybe he didn't succeed in all the areas, but he tried, and I respect him for that. His watchwords were, you remember what they were?
Transparency and accountability.
Transparency and accountability. You got it right.
Yeah.
Because why? Because regardless of your resource endowments, regardless of what you have, whether you have oil, gas, mineral resources, unless and until there is good governance in the country, marked by transparency and accountability, development will never take root. And Kenny Anthony, of course, thankfully introduced that term into our lexicon. Without good governance, a country could never achieve its true potential. We look at countries which have the highest levels of development. Singapore, no natural resources. Commitment, good government, and good governance. Norway. And contrast that to many resource-rich countries, natural endowments, huge populations, even in our near region. Development can't take root. Some of our continental neighbors across the sea, huge natural endowments, resources galore, but development continues to elude them. Why?
Bad governance?
If you don't have good governance, you don't have a country.
So, Mr. Fabre, how would you describe good governance? What does that look like to you?
For me, transparency and accountability, and I think let me sort of double click on what transparency means. Transparency means that any action that the government takes on behalf of those people who've given the government delegated authority to act on their behalf, those individuals, us, who are the bosses of politicians, should know. It is not good enough to say that I've signed a no-bid contract, a direct award, and I'm asking you, what is the cost, what are the conditions, and the government who are subject to the people.
Let me bring you to terms with what exists here. That's not your business.
but how?
That's what your prime minister will tell you.
There's a saying that sunlight is the best disinfectant. Unless there's sunlight.
I like that term.
Unless there's sunlight.
Andre, I just adopted
corruption will manifest itself. So transparency in CIP, transparency in GPH, transparency in road contracts, transparency in rental of office space, transparency in the business of the people of this country. It is our taxpayers' money. It is our responsibility to know how government is acting on our behalf. The government is not the boss. The politicians are not the boss. The people are the boss. But it is sad. It's frankly sad. And it's shocking that now the politicians seem to be the bosses of the people, the bosses of the institution, and are not being made to show for themselves how they have acted on behalf of the people. The other one is accountability. If you engage in a transaction on behalf of the people of St. Lucia, we need to know and have visibility on what are the outcomes. Example, CIP. You've sold passports on behalf of the country. Are you accounting for those resources? There was supposed to be a hotel at Canals. Where's the hotel? Where are the resources?
I also want to bring to mind here the $80 million that was borrowed by the National Lotteries Authority. The Minister of Sports refuses to even tell us who is the contractor.
There are a litany of examples, which for me is shocking. And guess what? That was never the case before. Even under the Labour Party government of Kenny Anthony, and I'm inviting Labour Party supporters who are listening to me, who know this to be true, what I am saying, to start thinking and re-establishing those values. Because if I see it as well in my party, I'll be the first one to call it out. We are too much at a critical juncture in our development. Our resources are too thin. Our time is too limited. Our people are in too much need. The lack of service delivery is too high for us to be playing around with people's resources, not accounting for those resources, and feeling that we do not need to be transparent about our actions, which should be directed to enhance the lives of those people.
Yeah. Andre, I want to intervene at this juncture just to say, well, not about Stephen, but about the United Workers' Party. What impresses me most about the United Workers' Party at this time is the fact that, okay, the party has phased out, I almost said some of us, but the impressive slate that they have replaced the past candidates with, not only are they competent, they are independent people. Now, why that is important to me? You cannot manipulate an independent person. Now, I just heard a statement from Stephen that he will be the first to call out his own party. These are the kinds of individuals we want to get into the leadership of our country and to offer themselves to service. That in itself, because you have to keep yourself on the straight and narrow, and you have to do the introspection and self-assessment as well.
Correct.
Self-evaluation as well. So I think that is important. But back to you, Stephen, because, I will have enough time in other programs to say the things that I want to say. Today it's about you. So I keeping you on the spot.
Is it on the same question? I want to finish Andre's question.
Okay,
about
go ahead, yeah.
So there's another one.
But I can assure you Andre would have come back.
Another reason why I'm committed to the governance model of the United Workers' Party is because of its ambition. Its ambition for the country, its ambition for St. Lucians, from the bus driver to the lawyer to the farmer. We are ambitious about your prospects. And why? Because I think the Labour Party has robbed St. Lucia of his ambition. It has robbed the average person of his ambition, Andre. If I told you a story, Andre, that there was once a country where there's an island 1 kilometer of the coast of the northern tip. And in that country, 50 years ago, they dredged an inland marsh, an inland swamp, used the effluent from that dredging to create a causeway to be formed, linking an island off the coast of that country to the mainland. If I were to tell you that was St. Lucia, what would you say? If I were to tell you that a swamp, an inland swamp, has now become the home of 300 slips for yachts from all over the world that we are proud of, would you believe that was St. Lucia? If I were to tell you that was 50 years ago, if I were to tell you that right now, that causeway has caused for 2 major hotels employing hundreds of people directly and maybe thousands indirectly and hundreds of millions of dollars in economic activity over the last decade to be caused, what would you say? John Compton, the UWP had ambition. You know what the Labour Party said back then? You know what they called it? A white elephant. They called it a white elephant. They didn't believe that we had the potential to deliver on that. Andre, if I were to tell you that we blew holes using dynamite through mountains to create the Millennium Highway in this country, would you believe me? If I were to tell you that St. Lucia was the first country to have a purpose-built cruise ship facility in Point Serafin in the Southern Caribbean, would you believe me? If I were to tell you that we dredged and we reclaimed land at Prince Albert's Bay, where most of the containers right now are on the wharf, would you believe me? If I were to tell you that we developed Uranora Airport before Dominica and most of the Caribbean islands, in the Southern Caribbean islands, we developed it ourselves, would you accept that to be true? If I were to tell you that we redeveloped the entire waterfront, we removed Conway, we built up the government buildings, we transformed the face of St. Lucia 30 years ago, would you believe me? And now, Andre, they're telling us that we cannot control our ports. We're not capable. We have to give it to GPH. They're telling me now that we can't build an airport at Uranora. They're telling me now that we need others to do what we have done for ourselves in the past. Would you believe that to be where we are? We dammed the Vanna River to cause the Sir John Compton Dam, as it is now known, to be formed 30 years ago. The biggest infrastructure project in the south of the Caribbean. But now they're telling us now, Andre, listen to this, that we are not deserving of a purpose-built, state-of-the-art hospital in the south. We could build a dam. We could address water shortage in the country, one of the most complex engineering interventions in the Southern Caribbean at the time. But now we need to go to an 80-year-old facility, not purpose-built, because that's where we are. They have robbed St. Lucia of its ambition, and we cannot develop this country without ambition. And what has been the offer? Contracts twice a year? Contracts? Jazz festival tickets? 1 or 2 adjustments in pensions, which I agree with and I support. 1 or 2 adjustments in VAT, I agree with, I support. For what? Not for you, for political power. Rank political opportunism. Not looking at the big picture. What can we do for ourselves, Andre? What can we do for this country? How could we develop it the way Sir John did? Have a big vision, believe in ourselves, accomplish great things, make St. Lucia earn its place, its true place, its rightful place in the Caribbean, which should be the center of the Eastern Caribbean. We've lost that ambition. For what? For jazz festival tickets? For contracts? For the client relationship between some contractors and the current administration? Is that what we're paying for? And they're telling St. Lucians, now, we're going to give you a little soulagement for 6 months on VAT. We're going to give you a little relief for 6 months. St. Lucians were bawling last year before. Inflation was through the roof. Now inflation is coming down. Now you're saying before election it's opportunistic for you to say we're going to give you a little relief. When inflation was at the highest rates since Volcker, who was the Federal Reserve Chairman in the 1980s in the US, since 1980s, the highest rate globally, St. Lucians were bawling and crying. St. Lucians were suffering. Not a word, not a word. But now, 6 months before elections, 70 items get a VAT reduction. Is that governance? Is this what passed for governance in this country? This is wickedness. Anyway, so yes, the big vision, Andre, we have the big vision. We've done it before. We've done the airports. We've done the seaports. We've done the tunnel. We've done Pigeon Island. We've done it before. And we need to have the UWP in power. And guess what? We have the farmers at the same time. We need to bring back the UWP, establish a broad future for this country, an ambitious future for this country, a new St. Lucia, but we need to hold St. Lucian's hands whilst we do it. And that's what I believe in United Workers, why I believe in the United Workers Party. And finally, sorry for being, because this is something which is deeply personal to me. This is not politics, this is personal to me. The third thing is institutions, which is in some way aligned to good governance. If we have weak institutions, you don't have a country. I just lived for the last 20 years in a country where most people won't know who the president is. In fact, I can't tell you who the president is of Switzerland. Most people won't know. I'm curious why. You know why? You know why, Andre? Because the institutions are more important than the individuals. St. Lucia is in inverse. The bosses, the ministers who want to be more important than the institutions. And for that, where's LASPA now? A great, strong, proud organization. Where's LASPA? What's happening in the CIP? Is there transparency? Is it working? What happened to the DCA, particularly with respect to the matter relating to the halls of justice? Where was their voice? Where is the Integrity Commission? Even Calypsonians right now are afraid to sing because the bosses are on top of these institutions. The institutions are not being made to function as they should because you have a hierarchy. You have a hierarchy where the politicians now are the gods in this country, the gods over these institutions. People are afraid. Politicians, Calypsonians don't want to sing. They're afraid to sing. I spoke to one yesterday. He said, me? I'll make a song for you. Yeah? That is where we are. Because we need to have strong institutions. We need to empower institutions. We need to ensure that the institutions are not mechanisms of the government to assert their authority on the backs of St. Lucians. The institution should be working for us, not against us. So we need strong institutions. And I'll say in closing on this matter, this is not Stephen Favre, this is empirical. Francis Fukuyama, one of the best thinkers of the last century, he wrote a book which I would suggest that our readers have a look at if they have the time, Getting to Denmark. And he spoke about the importance of institutions and why institutions are the cornerstone of development. Also another book by Robinson, which will also focus on the same question, which is why do nations fail? This is tried and tested. You have no good governance, you don't have a country. You have no institutions, or the institutions become lackeys or submissive, or the vehicles of politicians in exerting their power, on your back, you don't have a country. And if you don't have a broad and an honest development vision with the people of the country at your focus, you're not going anywhere. And that is why I'm with the UWP, because we have a good governance at the core of our agenda. We have a big vision, an ambitious vision, not for infrastructure only, but for you. And we will strengthen and make alive those institutions of government which are required to achieve those outcomes.
Yeah, so you've certainly made a case for the UWP and why you are with the UWP, why you chose the UWP, because I'm saying you had an option. But
I had no option.
you had no option. But you see, at the end of the day, you have made that case. Because even I'm much older than you are, even have forgotten some of the things that you're mentioning. We've taken for granted that the UWP has put in place for the benefit of St. Lucia, and we are reaping the benefits of it today. And that is impressive. But as impressive as I am, Stephen, about what you've said about your party, you, yes, you are a representative of the party, you're a member of the party, but you will be first and foremost looking to represent a constituency. What is it that Stephen Favre will do for Castries North? And why should the voters of Castries North trust you, Stephen Favre?
Look, there are two things I want to say on that. The first one is I remember Castries North in the 1980s and 1990s. It's vibrant, working class, middle class constituency. People were very proud. They still are proud because they're fighters. But we drive and walk through the length of breadth of this constituency, and there's rot, decay, lack of care and attention, notwithstanding the best efforts of my constituents. They have the best constituents on the island, notwithstanding their efforts, because they try hard. These are honest people, and they try hard, they work hard. The gutters are not being cleaned, basic infrastructure is not being met. The same health center in Leclerc that was there when I was a little boy is still there. The same health center which was there in 1989 is still there, notwithstanding the expanded needs of the constituency. There's decay. They don't care. They don't care. And guess what? The last 4 years, I've seen no improvement. And I also will put my hand up. We as a country, both parties, have to do better. But Castries North has been neglected. You walk around Leclerc, some of the nice middle-class areas, nobody's in there. They've been vandalized. The lack of care and attention. So I intend to focus on bringing the community back to what it was, what it can be, in fact, improve it. I believe we have some of the best athletes in the country. The VBCC is a wonderful organization, produce some of the most talented sports personalities. Basketball was a very important sport. It's not as active as it used to be. Football, I look at the football pitch and I'm wondering, why is the football pitch, not in Leclerc, but throughout the constituency? Lack of care and attention, lack of concern, lack of commitment, lack of responsibility, Spider. It's there. That's what they deserve. So I want to ensure that those physical infrastructure, the capital stock as it were, is improved. I want to ensure that those ladies who have met, who need government support, whether it's Geraldine who has an autistic child who the government has repeatedly not given the support to, whether it is some of the ladies who I know have challenges with mobility and there's no one to help them to take care of their needs. I need to take care of these people. We need to put the institutions and structures in place that their needs will be met.
Okay.
I need to ensure that there is opportunity for economic renewal in the constituency. So, and finally, Spider, I won't go into my whole development plan for the constituency, but most importantly, I want to be there with the people. I want to be there with them. If I'm representing them, if they are able to give me the trust and confidence, and they want a new start, and they give me their trust, I have to be there with them. And that is something which is lacking right now.
Okay, great. You spoke of your party, and I tackled you on Stephen Favre. What will you do for the constituency? But you're not operating in a vacuum. There is an opponent, and that opponent is Stephenson King. Now, for purposes, we can admit that he is a force. He's been there for quite a while. I think Steve came in the 90s, early 90s.
80s.
80s? Okay.
80s.
He came since the 80s. So he's been around for quite a long time. And for most of that time, he has been the parliamentary representative. You are actually going up against him. How do you see the Stephenson King factor in terms of affecting the issues in the constituency? And I would extend it to say in the country, because let's not forget that he's not just a parliamentary representative, he's also a minister of government who presides over a major ministry at this point in time, and has in the past been prime minister, has been minister of health, minister of sports and social transformation, and all of that. How do you see the Stephenson King factor affecting the issues in the constituency, first of all, and nationally?
Spider, thanks for the question. I have tried to, and I will remain neutral on personalities. I don't think we need to go into personalities. But I will have to draw a contrast between the current level of service delivery, care and attention being paid by the incumbent, and what I intend to do. So this is not personal, this is about creating that contrast, which I think is important. If I need to ask you to vote for me or support me, you need to know what I'll be doing different. So the first thing is the constituency. Look, as I said earlier, the Leclerc and the constituency at large, I think was one, and it has been and still remains one of the most important constituencies on the island. But there's been decay, there's been overgrowth, there's been neglect. There is an impression as I walk the highways and byways that there's an absence of leadership from the incumbent. There is a feeling that the current regime is not focused on their needs, but focused on finding creative ways to sustain power. There's a feeling that the incumbent is more focused on ensuring that he balances between all different parties to ensure that he can remain in power. So it's not about the people. It's not about the people. It's about the person. And that's what I'm hearing from them. I don't know the gentleman personally, so I can't say that I know that to be true, but that is what I'm hearing from my constituents. And for me, I want to work in such a way that I don't have to be politically opportunistic. People could look at my record and say, look, Stephen did this, Stephen didn't do this. I'm going to hold him to account on this, and I want to thank him for this. I don't need to play games with people's emotions, people's trust, people's confidence for power. That's not what I'm here for. And I think that is what people feel, that they were taken advantage of, that they were tricked, that they were used for a political outcome. I cannot personally say that is true, but I have to listen to my constituents. That's what they're telling me every single day, that they were used, they were tricked, they were manipulated into believing that this individual was working in their best interest, that he was supporting their party. But now that they are seeing clearly that it was a charade, it was untrue. Now on the substance, gentleman has the most important, or one of the most important ministerial portfolios, infrastructure. Of course, SLASPA falls under infrastructure.
That's correct. I was about telling you.
What has he said about GPH? GPH is one of the most contentious matters, the patrimony of the country, one of the main strategic assets of the country, one of the most proud institutions of the country. It's been disemboweled, been sold for parts to external agents, and who knows what benefits are accruing to some of those who may have or may not have been part of that transaction. No transparency. But where is the minister on this matter? Is he supportive of it? Is he complicit with it? So GPH, I wonder also about the roads. You know, there's this stretch of road between Dennery and Miku. In fact, it's Poile. There is a bridge which has been under construction in Poile, just across from the fishery, for about a year and a half. Is that a minister who drives down that road to Vieux-Fort often? Has he not been down there?
I am tempted to tell you that's nothing. Talk about the Millennium Highway. The Millennium Highway started when the UWP was in office. It's not completed yet, after 4 years.
It is incredible.
Yeah.
It is shocking.
Yeah.
It is shocking. It is shocking. The level of neglect, the lack of care and attention, the disregard, the disrespect of St. Lucian people. It is shocking. A year and a half to fix some culverts. But worse than that, I walked through Leclerc, some parts of Leclerc and City Gate, some footpaths. Deplorable. 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 Brought tears to my eyes. Deplorable. Lady said to me that she has to walk down that footpath at night, not a light. I'm trying to navigate in my mind how me, an able-bodied man, could walk down and navigate my way down in the daytime. And I'm trying to figure out at nighttime, how is this lady getting down there? But you have the biggest ministry as it relates to resources, maybe out of economic planning and finance. You've been there for 30 years? And these people have been begging you? Begging you? How could that be? How could that be? And you have the ministry with responsibility to address that need? Come on. Come on. So no, that will not happen. And guess what? If I do that, kick me out. If I have people living in these conditions, don't even wait 5 years. Kick me out. Because I will be too ashamed to face them. I, Stephen Favre, and again, this is not ad hominem. This is not invective. I'm not laying aspersions on anybody's character. I'm just drawing the contrast between me, the standard I hold myself by, and what I see obtaining now based on what the residents of the constituency have told me. I'll be very clear. This is not a personal attack. I'm drawing the distinction between what I expect of myself if you give me your trust, if you give me your confidence, and what I'm seeing right now. And this is intolerable.
Now, Stephen, you spoke of the UWP, the party of choice for you. You spoke of you offering yourself as a candidate to represent Castries North and so on. There's another important, you spoke of your opponent's performance and so on. There's another very important factor, and being involved in St. Lucian politics, I've learned that leadership plays a major role in the politics of St. Lucia.
Sure.
Today's leaders are the current Prime Minister, Philip J. Pierre, who is the leader of the St. Lucia Labour Party, and former Prime Minister, leader of the opposition, Alan Chassnney, who is the leader of the United Workers' Party. Now, there's much that is being said. I mean, the leaders are always under scrutiny. They are the ones who come under most attack, for that matter. And, of course, the Labour Party spend a lot of their time attacking Alan Chassnney and saying all kinds of things about him. I want to know, yes, you told me why you chose the UWP. You told me why you chose to get involved in politics. But there's something I must ask you. Why you chose to follow the leadership of Alan Chassnney as the leader of the United Workers' Party, who will become the Prime Minister when you all form the government. Let me hear your views about Alan Chassnney as your leader.
Thank you, Spider. You know, when I listen to what the Labour Party has said about Alan Chassnney, and sometimes I listen to people who are sincerely concerned about him, I'll be completely transparent. Some people are concerned about him. Some people say to me, Alan Chassnney, you know. And the Labour Party has done such a magnificent job in demonizing Alan Chassnney, to the extent that the person that is being portrayed to me by the Labour Party is completely different to the man I know personally. Completely different. And 99% of these people who have these fantastic, magical views of Alan Chassnney. I've never had a conversation with him or know his heart. I don't know his heart, but I can tell you the person that I know. You know, I'll tell you two things which really, for me, was very important in terms of that decision. I've known Alan for many years, but I worked with him one of the times I worked with him was in 2019. We had an international trade forum which was hosted by the UN in Geneva. And he was invited to speak. And I think he came from Bahamas. Hurricane Dorian had just hit, and he came and he spoke passionately about the importance of supporting small island developing states. You know, the World Economic Forum, everyone wanted to speak with him. Everyone. And he did a masterful job at explaining St. Lucia, explaining with pride and dignity, you know, our concerns and who we are as a people and the challenges we face. But more than that, in those 2.5 days, I'll tell you, Spider, I've never worked so hard. Alan landed in Geneva about 11 o'clock at night, got to his hotel. I gave him his briefing documents. He went through it. He said to me, Stephen, okay, it's a bunch of speeches, but what are we doing for St. Lucians? Where are the businesses that I could meet? We need to get some jobs in the country. We need to get things going. I need to tomorrow try to get some meetings with people who are potential investors, because I'm not just going to do speeches here and then go back to St. Lucia with nothing. That was midnight, and I'm thinking, how? What am I going to do? Anyway, we got meetings. We worked from 7 o'clock in the next morning. Every hour, every meeting. I don't think Alan slept or he had lunch. He worked hard. And I was in those meetings. His concerns were not about FFF and this. It's about how you get jobs for people in St. Lucia, for his constituents in Mico South. How could he get opportunities? In fact, I know one of the outcomes of that meeting was a FIFA Goal project, where there was a playing field which was built under that project, which he helped negotiate. I know he met with MSC Cruise Line. Mm-hmm. He met with other people, every corner, trying to see what he could do for the country. So this notion that Alan doesn't care, or the Prime Minister at the time doesn't care, is untrue. I worked harder with Prime Minister Chassnney during those 2.5 days than I've done with anybody else. Now, I could tell you, and I could contrast that where other ministers have come and I've received them and how they've spent their time. Let's leave it at that, right? Let's leave it at that. So the person who doesn't care about St. Lucia worked so hard. I worked with him in New York as well. And it was flat out, meeting after meeting, trying to figure out how we could solve some of our challenges. He will call me up if there's a challenge and say, okay, how could we address these things? How could we fix this up? About the country. There's pride in Alan Chassnney about this country. Alan Chassnney's heart is for this country, not because he's a white man or they say he's a white man, he doesn't care. And what is this about white man? Since when we've gone there? Who cares? If Alan Chassnney is the best person for the job, I don't care if he's white, pink, green, or once his heart is in the right place, and I believe his heart is in the right place, I will support him. And I have every doubt, I have every confidence that those people who claim not to be white, who are enriching themselves whilst they should be in the service of people, they should be ashamed. Using invective and racial slurs and using class warfare to achieve a political outcome, to divide this country further. But guess what, Spider? And that's my last point. But I'm not surprised. Andre, guess what? Vaughan Lewis was the worst thing that ever happened in Lucia. He was a drunk. Toujours sous. John Compton was pretty worse. There was nothing good about Jabla. There was nothing good. Yeah. So the Labour Party used very Marxist, communist approaches. They decapitated the leader. So what has been done to Alan Chassnney is not different to what was said about Sir John. It's worse. Sir John was worse. They threw feces at him. Sir John. Right? They decapitate the leader. And that's what they're going for. They're trying to decapitate the leader. But I stand with Alan Chassnney because I have seen him work. I have seen his commitment. I have seen his desire to take this country forward. And I believe it. And I'm no spring chicken. And I'm not easily fooled. So that is why I stand with Alan Chassnney. And I think, and I call out, saying our party in particular, look, we have to stand with our leader. Because that's their strategy, to try to destabilize us, say Alan not good, Alan is this, Alan is white man. This is not true. And the Labour Party supporters of good conscience, stop that. Tell your party, think about something which is more progressive, helpful for the future of this country. Because as much as I'm Flabo, they're good Labour Party supporters. They're good patriots. Everybody wants good for the country. But we have to draw a line. Class warfare and colorism and racism, because you want to sustain political power, you want to mash up the country more. Look, UWP, stand with our leader. We need to. Because that's what they're going for. That's their prize. To convince us that he's not good. Why? Because all of a sudden, Labour Party want to get us the best leader to be them. Because they care about us more than we care about ourselves. They care about us. The Labour Party, they care about us more than we care about ourselves. So they give us advice. Tell them to hold their advice.
I have to say to you, Stephen, that it's a relief for me to hear you, as a younger, when I say younger compared to me, younger upcoming politician, taking such a strong position on those matters. Because I've always felt very strongly against that posture of the St. Lucia Labour Party, projecting that racism, that insularity, and you know, that kind of division that they're trying to perpetuate among our people. I think it is disgraceful. I think it is shameful. And I'm happy to hear that you, forming the new crop of politicians seeking to represent people in this country, do not endorse or condone that approach. I'm very happy to hear that. And, you know, you spoke of Alan Chassnney, and you gave us what, for me, is a more outside view, because you saw him on the international stage, you were there yourself, and you were telling us your reading of him and how impressed you were with him. I worked with Alan Chassnney, okay? And I will confess to you, I didn't start off as a fan of Alan Chassnney. I didn't know him personally before or anything like that. And I don't become impressed by anybody by just looking at them. Because you have to do something to impress me. And I worked with Alan Chassnney, especially in his capacity as Prime Minister. And I say to you, I am impressed by the man's energy, by the man's commitment, by the man's patriotism, and above all, by his vision for this country.
I want to say something, if I may. I had a before, when the budget was, we discussing the budget, I sat in a meeting with Alan Chassnney recently. Now, I've had the good fortune, I've been in some really top-level meetings with heads of all of these major international organizations, presidents, prime ministers of the highest quality caliber. And whilst we were analyzing the budget, I just looked at Alan Chassnney and his ability to reason through what was being presented, what the implications are. And I could tell you, it was par excellence. It is at the highest level that I have seen. And I promise you, I mean that sincerely. His ability to dissect and go through the issues and understand what the implications are for the country and for people is unmatched. And this is, I could tell you, for the last 10 years, I've been at the top level working with those people who are reputed to be the best at the game, the best in analyzing, the best in discussing, and he's as good, if not better than most. So Alan, I mean, again, I'm not suggesting he's perfect. No, he's not, and not everything I agree with him on, even if he's my leader and I support him and I'm loyal to him. But in terms of his capacity to vision what the country should go be like, the willingness to give every effort to develop the country, his care and sensitivity to people, and his determination to bring this country forward in a way which fulfills its objectives, I'm sold.
You know, another thing that impressed me about Alan, and I think that's a mark of a true leader, is his ability to deal with contending views. He will actually encourage contending views, because I have not, like you said, I've not always agreed. So, and he would sit and have it out with you, discuss it and so on. On occasions, I would end up seeing with him. Not always, you know what I'm saying? But that is the thing I find that is remarkable about him. So in the end, you end up with a better policy, a better vision,
Absolutely.
a better situation. And I think he is the man for the moment.
Absolutely.
He is the one for the job, and I think Alan Chassnney will take St. Lucia places. And you know why I'm ever more convinced that he will? Because of the kind of people he surrounded himself with. Now, trust me, flattery is the last thing that will ever come from me. So don't think I'm flattering you. You know, I wanted to make it clear to you. Don't think I'm flattering you. When I look at the caliber of candidates that the UWP is presenting right now, okay, I don't want to offend anybody, and I don't want to offend myself either. But that's the best slate I've seen.
For sure. You look from Labrie to the north, from Labrie to Grosley. I mean, it's all top quality,
and
high quality.
You see, Stephen, a leader who is weak will never embrace you all.
Absolutely.
Would never embrace you all.
Absolutely.
They will see you all more as a threat, you know. And the other thing is, Alan Chassnney demonstrated one thing to me, principle. And a leader who condones, entertains, or overlook impropriety, corruption, or any form of inappropriate behavior in government, I have no respect for them.
Correct.
Alan Chassnney famously dismissed 2 ministers in one term.
Correct.
Okay? That takes strength as a leader to do.
Conviction.
You know? And I know it wasn't a pleasure for him to do
Conviction.
it. But that's what was required.
But guess what?
You know?
In the current dispensation, you think that ever happened?
It'll never happen.
Because you know what's most important? Protecting the victory.
Yeah. You know what is happening now is what the public servants used to say, you know. Public servants would tell you, boy, I can commit murder, they can fire me. You know? And that's what's happening in government today. And this is why, another reason why I think it's urgent that we do something about the plight of the country, and that's why I commend people like you. And when I say people like you, who has an alternative, and I want to say it, you will not say it, a better alternative. If from a personal standpoint.
Well, for me,
from a personal standpoint,
the biggest sacrifice, and the people always say, Stephen, you're making the sacrifice. Okay, I have not I left a decent job and whatnot.
Oh, come on,
but for me,
you say a decent job.
What's easier for me to stay over there comfortably and seeing the country being burnt and ripped apart limb by limb, where I know that young people, young women, working hard, trying to find opportunities for themselves, trying to find opportunities for their children, trying to buy a house or build a house, trying to improve their conditions. These people are not being supported. They've been given trinkets. They're not being given meaningful opportunities. While some who are at the top level, their pockets are growing exponentially. Their portfolio of property is increasing exponentially. That's what's happening. So staying over there and pursuing my career, for me, it would be a bigger sacrifice any day of the week and twice on a Sunday to watch my country go in a direction of peril when I believe with the right team and the right people, we could make a difference.
Yes.
And guess what? On your point about the quality of the candidates, look, I've done my thing. I'm not going to, it's been okay. But every candidate I've spoken to, and more than their credentials, I've spoken to most of the candidates, their passion for this country, their passion for the constituency, their desire to see the country move forward, their desire to make sacrifices of themselves and their family to ensure that this country moves in a direction where it could fulfill its objectives, its potential. I'm heartened by that. These are men and women soldiers in a fight for the future of this country, and I'm proud to be part of that army. And guess what? Whether you're blue or red, if this is what you want, to have a better future for yourself, have a better future for your family, you want to move this country forward, you want to re-engage that ambition that we had, that big thinking, that big view of ourselves and the future, join us. Join us.
Stephen, you talk about, you refer to it now. You know what I mean, over there, I mean, you say over there, you are at the top table at the WTO. So you have first-hand experience and knowledge of what happens there. Tell us, the average people in St. Lucia. Okay, I'm hearing about the WTO. How does that affect our lives? I mean, what does the WTO do for us? What does it mean to us average people?
So, this is a very, very big question you've asked, but I'll try to put it in a way which is accessible. So the first thing is, prior to the establishment of the multilateral system, countries could use trade as economic warfare. Countries could say, I don't like this country, so I'll have higher tariffs and higher barriers to trade with this country and that country alike, so I'll have lower barriers to trade. So there was no consistency or limited consistency in how those trade rules functioned. The WTO aimed to create transparency, predictability, and clarity on how countries traded with each other, and it did so. In fact, since the establishment of the WTO, 1.5 billion people were lifted out of poverty. Many countries in Asia, Latin America, and Africa found pathways to integrate into global value chains, and that has been important to the development of those countries. Now, St. Lucia has had a very, let's say, difficult relationship with the WTO.
I was just about to say
yes,
to you, because I noted you mentioned Latin America, Asia, and I was just about to tell you, the average St. Lucian will tell you, boy, WTO not a good agent.
And you know what? They would not be wrong. Okay. Let me say that. Mm-hmm. So in moving towards a more equitable, fair, rules-based system, the rules were made very flat. So every country, with few exceptions, had to apply the same rules. So whilst we had preferential access to the European market before the WTO, when the WTO came into effect, we had to play by the same rules with Latin America and other banana producers who were more efficient. What huge acres, miles of bananas, lower cost of production, scale, higher, better economies of scale for production, so they could get into those markets more efficiently, cheaper. So when you have smallholder farmers with 10, 12 acres of land, you're not competitive. But the rules at the time were very, let's say, clear that everyone should be treated the same. And that affected us. So when the new regime came into effect, the Latin American banana producers were given more market access. Their quota expanded. Then, of course, it became more challenging for us to export. However, at that time, people like Edwin Laura and others in the UWP were fighting hard to sustain our conditions. But what is happening now, and I think the WTO has also come into renewed focus, is those countries which had once said to us, the rules are good, you have to play by the rules, don't worry, if your bananas go down, you're more competitive in services, you'll have an expanded services sector. Now, because of those same rules, you've seen the sucking sound of industrial production out of places in Northern England, in the Midwest in the US, in the Rust Belt, and those jobs, like our bananas, have gone elsewhere. So now it's become political. So the US is saying, and we have high levels of unemployment in those places which previously had industrial capacity and exported. Those jobs have gone to Mexico, China, etc. So now there's being a rethink, how does the system actually work? But St. Lucia and the Windward Islands were at the front of that change. We were at the cold face of that change. And we fought, look, you cannot treat unequal countries equally. We don't have the same scale economies. We don't have the same population size. We don't have the same internal markets. We're geographically displaced from our markets. Give us a little breathing room. But that was not done. But now, the big guns, the big countries which wrote the rules, they're seeing the other countries being more competitive, manufacturing and industrial capacity being relocated, and now they're saying, the shoe has gone on the other foot. Wow, we can't. So it's become political. So let me just say that the WTO has been a huge source of generating wealth, creating employment, lifting people from poverty. But it is going through a period of reflection, of reform, and I think that is what the members are focused on now. How do we reform the system to fulfill the core principles of the Marrakesh Agreement, whilst at the same time ensuring that there is enough wiggle room for countries to be able to engage in a way which is not deleterious to their own economic well-being over time. And I know St. Lucia will, and hopefully will be participating effectively in these talks.
So, well, quite interesting, and I know Stephen as a parliamentary rep, because that's the first thing you are. First and foremost, you are a parliamentary rep. that you will, I'm sure, use your network that you have established over those over 20 years to benefit your constituents, and more importantly, at least to me, that you will use your experience and your understanding of the international agencies and so on to better position St. Lucia to profit, to benefit from what transpires on that stage. To an extent, we know we don't have full control, but at least if you have a good understanding of it, then you can maneuver better and you can better benefit. And I think that is a plus for St. Lucia. I think you're a great catch for the United Workers' Party and St. Lucia. We can look forward to people like yourself and the other newcomers of quality, of competence, who have passion to serve this country, taking this country from where it is now to where it ought to be. Now, Stephen, Andre is here, so he can always ask his questions when he wants to. I have asked so many questions. I know my listeners and my viewers are waiting to get a piece of you, and I will not deny them. So,
but I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind.
Yeah, but before, let Andre ask his questions.
Yeah, you spoke earlier about decapitating the leader of the United Workers' Party. I gather you don't like that strategy. Is that correct? And if that's the case, is that what most parties do? Decapitate the leaders?
I don't know that we've been going after Philip J. Pierre. I don't know if we've done that. I think we've been addressing the issues.
Yeah, he's looking at me. I have never tried to decapitate the gentleman. I've exposed his weaknesses.
No, but it's not personal.
You
I
know?
think that's a distinction, and I don't think that the party has been, and I wouldn't be part of that either. If you have a policy which is adverse to the interests of the country, we address it. But I'm not going to say because Philip J. Pierre or whoever has a policy which I don't like, that I'm going to go after him personally or his family or his income. No, I'm not going to do that. But of course, not all parties are the same.
Or maybe not all members of the party are the same.
Well, however it is, but you know what?
Okay, let me intervene here for a moment. We have now, in effect, named 16 candidates. I will challenge you or anybody else, Andre, to name one who engages in that. Challenge me to name one on the SLP side. Challenge me to name one on the
No, but you know what?
So you're out of it. You're out of it.
No, what I'm saying to you is that if you challenge me to name not just candidates, they are sitting ministers of government in our cabinet who engage in all kinds of mépris, all kinds of abuses of people on gutter politics. That is the hallmark of the SLB. Every politician who has a blemish, a name, a derogatory name and so on, that came from the that came from the St. Lucia Labour Party. Okay,
but
then you respond in kind, right? Don't you?
Well, I mean, when I was in politics for 20-something years, you never heard me engage in that kind of politics. I have taken Richard Frederick on in particular because I find his politics to be despicable, and you have a leader who brought him in. He's not even a member of the Labour Party. The Prime Minister handpicked him and brought him in. That kind of character, that kind of individual. And to better position him to continue to perpetuate that kind of politics in St. Lucia, and nobody says anything about that. We cannot accept that. And Richard cannot want to think or given the impression or believe for a moment that is fine, that is acceptable. So I will take him on any day. I've said so publicly, and I will do it publicly. I will take him on any day. And first of all, I just want to say before you come on, Stephen, that Philip J. Pierre is solely and wholly responsible for that situation.
Well, that's what I was about to say. That's what I was about to say. Look, the buck stops at number one.
Yeah.
If I'm number one and people beneath me or people who are, of course, it is first among equals, if people who are part of my circle are conducting themselves in a way which I think to be less than appropriate, it is my responsibility as a leader to say so. And if I do not pronounce myself clearly on that matter, you know what, I'm complicit. So I'm not sure if he's responsible, but certainly there's some level of complicity which
I'm sure he
does fall at the feet of the leader.
And Andre, I always say here on the program to you, if I see when I come here the next time the partition is lined with gold and everything, and I ask questions, you can tell me get out of your studio and go to hell, because that's your private, personal business. Stephen can no longer speak to me that way.
Yep,
okay?
That's correct.
He is a public figure,
That's
a
correct.
public servant,
That's correct.
okay, who is answerable to me. When I say me, I'm talking about the general public of St. Lucia. So when I ask him, Stephen, I didn't see you with that watch the other day. I can go as far as that. Because I don't want to know he goes to some meeting in Geneva to represent us and some millionaire bribe him by giving him the watch and so on. He has to tell me, boy, I had my savings because, whatever, my wife bought that for me. That's as far as it goes. You are answerable to us. You understand what I'm saying? So when I ask questions about Casimir, about the sudden rise to wealth in 3.5 years, that's a legitimate concern. We do not want to know, or more importantly, to give the impression, Andre, that there is a corruption that is rife in government and that public funds are being misappropriated. We cannot. And I'm happy that I heard this gentleman here, Stephen Favory, speak about accountability and go in detail as to what he sees and understands it to be, and so on. That is refreshing. That is a different approach, a different brand of politics. Andre, go with your question, Andre. And mind you, Andre, I just want you to note, as the host of Meet the Opposition, I don't shield my guests. I don't prevent you from asking my guests whatever questions, because I know you're a pace bowler. And you bowl about. I leave him exposed. Go ahead and ask him your question.
No, but you have to protect me, man.
Go ahead and ask your questions.
So after I'm done, you'll take the calls, right?
Yes, we will.
Okay, just a quick question.
Okay.
You spoke about the World Trade Organization a while ago, and you're saying that the WTO was able to lift, I think you said, how many million people out of...
1.5 billion people out of poverty.
1.5 billion people out of poverty. But you'll also remember that because of the World Trade Organization basically taking away access to the EU market and so on, right? What we had before and we enjoyed. Didn't that put us now into poverty?
Look, for sure, there have been some challenges in terms of how the value of global trade is distributed. There are distributive challenges. Some have gained. If you have huge markets, big internal markets, you have factor resources, factor endowments, then of course you can be more competitive. You have big internal market, you'll be more competitive than a small country, 4,000 miles away from its market. So, but I think the framers of the Marrakesh Agreement, the founding document, may not have been sensitive to that. I think that's a fact. One of the things which my former boss...
Sensitive to what?
To the fact that countries are different and countries need to be...
the fact that they caused a lot of countries to go into poverty as a result of those actions. And St. Lucia was not the only country, by the way.
Correct. I would say net, more people have benefited, but some, like ourselves, have been disadvantaged. But guess what? There's news. I think under the current dispensation of my former boss, who I have a huge respect for, Dr. Ngozi, she has been focused on something called reglobalization, and her mantra has been, we need to ensure that within countries, the globalization or international trade has created economic displacement or disruption, that we address those issues, that people who were displaced in the first phase of globalization, that within countries, for example, the United States, if the industrial heartland, people there were displaced and the economic value benefits didn't flow to them, how could the new reimagined globalization ensure that they benefit in the next wave? Countries in Africa, for example, which didn't benefit from globalization, how could they fully benefit? How could they also benefit going forward? St. Lucia and those countries which had economic displacement, how could they benefit? So what she has framed that as is reglobalization. How could the new phase of globalization not only be a force multiplier and increase the efficiency of trade, of innovation, of economic growth, but how could it do it in a way which does not unduly marginalize countries which may not be competitive? And also, there's something to be said, and that's a bigger philosophical discussion about what internal policies could have been undertaken to ensure that the fallout of globalization or international trade rules did not adversely affect populations. And for example, in St. Lucia, we didn't help ourselves with the coupe par coupe.
Instigated by the St. Lucia Labour Party, by the way.
We didn't help ourselves by parties telling banana farmers who are already in a disadvantaged position do not export, striking. We help ourselves. So in as much as globalization and international trade rules as embodied by the WTO may have created economic challenges and may not have been equitable in the distribution of the value of international trade for small economies, and that's a fact. The reality is there are internal policies which could have made that adjustment easier. And I'm skeptical that we, St. Lucia, particularly in the Labour Party, or the Labour Party's interventions, helped in that regard.
Andre,
so we could have done better.
I listened to the answer there, and Stephen was the one in the diplomatic world and who has diplomatic exposure and so on, not me. So he said, we didn't help ourselves. I'm saying the St. Lucia Labour Party did not help St. Lucia when they destroyed the banana industry in the ways that he described.
Well, I think that was a lot clearer than what I said.
Yeah. So, but you talk about displacement, and that brought quickly to, before Andre, as Andre is opening the line while we're waiting for
the calls are already coming.
Okay.
Wow.
I just wanted to ask you, I want to hear your views on the displacement of the people at Banans Bay. Could you put on your headphones so I can hear our callers? Because Andre is saying that we already have callers on the line.
Yes, let me just give the numbers again. The fixed line is 572-9710, 572-9710, or you can WhatsApp 287-0971. WhatsApp is 287-0971. That's where we have our first call.
Okay. Good morning, call. Meet the opposition.
Hello?
Yes, good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Yeah, go ahead and make a contribution, please.
Good morning to everybody. The gentleman who is going up for Castries North,
Mr. Stephen Favre, yes.
Mr. Stephen Favre, I know him very well. But I used to wonder why he didn't used to speak much, but he used to observe a lot. And now I am seeing, I hardly used to hear Stephen speaking. And when I hear Stephen today, I'm wondering what's going on. But Stephen, Mr. Favre, congratulations.
The smarter people do more listening, brother.
I am hoping that you come and represent us as best as you can. One of the things that I would like you to do in Castries North, which is in the Leclerc area, is to put in signs for the school, for school children, as well as signs for these children coming, persons coming down from Cowley, coming into Leclerc, school, signs, because let me tell you, Mr. Favre, a lot of children are getting, into accident-prone situations, and I don't like to see that. So please, when you get into power, please look into this for me. You will be minister of what?
Well, I will serve at first of all, I have to win the election, and then I have to serve at the pleasure of the leader of our party. So I'm here to serve whatever ministry.
I can see him competent to serve in various capacities, many different portfolios. And whatever is given to him, I can see him doing well.
Yeah, I would like to congratulate you, and you've come a long way. You hardly used to speak, but you used to always be in thought. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. Have a blessed day. Have a blessed day yourself.
Okay, I can tell our caller is impressed with you, Stephen, and I'm not surprised. Good morning. We have another caller on the line. Good morning. Welcome to Meet the Opposition.
We lost it.
Oh, we lost that caller. Yes. While we wait for another caller, Stephen, can you tell me, the displacement, you're in the Castries Basin as well, though it is not in your constituency, but you're in the Castries Basin. The displacement of the folks at Banans Bay, what are your views on that?
Well, look, I am extremely pro-development, and I spoke earlier about my vision and having a big vision, having ambition for the country, and of course this is something which I hold very dear to. However, development has to be sensitive to people. It has to be sensitive to the conditions of people, the concerns that they have. You can't impose development. Development is a process through which there should be engagement, there should be consultation. But more than that, for me, and in particular...
Just so you know, you have two calls on hold.
Okay.
Sorry to disturb you.
So, for me, it's the duplicitous nature of the incumbents. Look, there was a lady, hardworking lady that we all care about, who was a restaurateur, I won't mention any names, at Casaba.
Marjorie. Sorry,
in
Stephen, that's my style.
circumstances where there was a investment of hundreds of millions, I think $200 or $300 million, which would improve the overall tourism product, which would create jobs for the country, which would create jobs for residents of Grosley, residents of Castries North. The Labour Party protested. They demanded, they wanted to shut down the project because of the displacement of this lady. And they have, in my view, set a precedent. I am not hearing the same level of concern for those people who would have and continue to be attached to their land in Banan, who have and continue to have the economic survival depending on accessing that land. Not a word. And in fact, Andre, what I'm being heard, what I understand, is a paltry sum being given as compensation. What happened to the Marjorie model? What happened to, and I'm going to say it, where is civil society in all of this? Where is the National Trust?
Yeah.
Where are those protesters? You have scores of people going to be directly impacted. Their livelihoods, their children. And not a word. Not a word. Not a word. Andrea, that can't be right. It cannot be one standard when UWP is in power and a completely different and altogether unrealistic standard being imposed on the UWP. But then in circumstances where your actions are affecting scores of people, maybe in the hundreds, you are not motivated to accord them the same dignity, the same patient hearing, the same support. That sort of duplicitous politics, we cannot accept it. But guess what? St. Lucians are seeing through it, Andre. I am convinced that St. Lucians are seeing through it because now the shoe is on the other foot. So I am very, very, very hurt. But more than hurt, I am shocked. I am shocked at the abject lack of attention, care, and consideration being given to those people. And we as UWP, we need to take a stand. We need to defend those people. I know my colleague Tommy is doing his best. He's speaking about it with great clarity, and for that I'm very proud of him. He needs to continue to do it. And he has a brother in arms on that battle for the rights of these people in me. We cannot allow it to happen. These guys in COVID had a march for Marjorie. In COVID. So deep was their concern about one person. But you have scores of people whose livelihoods will be affected, who are going to be displaced, whose future is uncertain. And not a word? What, $17,000 or $30,000? A paltry amount?
Yeah.
What a thing, Andre. That cannot be right. How could that be right?
Yeah, and talking about Tommy Descott.
I see, Mr. Fabry, for a guy who's been living overseas, he's awkward with everything happening here.
Yeah, of
wow.
course.
We have another call, by the way.
Yeah. Caller, good morning. Welcome to Meet the Opposition. Go ahead and make a contribution, please.
Good morning. Good morning, Andre. Good morning, Spider.
Good morning.
And good morning, Steve. I had to call in this morning. I sat and I listened to Stephen Fabry, and he is a breath of fresh air. Now let me tell you what impressed me most. Stephen, you are able to analyze situations and leave your emotions out of it. You said something very, very critical this morning, which many people have not said. And it's in terms of Philip J. Pierre and him accepting Richard into his government. Now, many people, well, even me, sometimes, I would say that Philip J. Pierre is the reason or is responsible for Richard's behavior, blah, blah, blah. But you took it to another level when you said he may not be responsible, but he may be complicit. And let me tell you, this is an aha moment for many people. Now, this is what we need in St. Lucia. Remove all the emotions and look at things objectively. Now, on the case of GPH, Stephen, the residents, when it comes to Crown lands, nobody gets automatic title to Crown lands. Okay, the government is the only one who has the power to give you Crown lands. Now, the people staying on Crown lands, even if they have been there for 1 million years, the government can remove them. However, my query or my hurt is that if you want to move them, we have so many vacant lots in St. Lucia. Could those people, build something with all the different amenities for them and give them some money? There should not be any protest or any war about that. Government, whoever was the consultant or whatever, people should need to go back, speak to those people, renegotiate. To me, we have more important issues to deal with than fighting over this.
Correct.
But Steve, all the best to you, and I'm sure you know who's speaking.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
so long.
Yes, caller. I don't think, I'm not suggesting that you have any interest in politics, but you sound like somebody who would be a good politician too. You sound very level-headed, controlled.
Very level-headed, very smart, very capable.
It's nice that you get.
But you know her biggest qualification?
Yeah.
She's a very good friend of mine. So,
okay. But
a lovely person.
But I'm saying you're worthy of all the accolades that you're getting from our callers. We have a caller, Andre?
Yes, we do.
Caller, we're giving our callers as much time as possible. So, welcome to Meet the Opposition. Go ahead and make your contribution.
Good morning. Good morning, Andre. Good morning, Spider. Good morning, Mr. Favorite.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My family home was the fourth house in La Clery. And I can tell you that La Clery has always been a place when you go to, from the time you get to it, you feel good and comfortable and being proud of. Today, 2025, I am so proud to be the chairman of the Castries North constituency branch under Mr. Favorite.
Okay.
Because when I listened to him today, it gave me more strength and more commitment to see a change. That when you enter Castries North, you should be able to see a difference. And I think the Castries North members of the United Workers' Party can rest assured that Mr. Favorite will do his best and make a difference in Castries North. It's about time. I want to compliment him publicly for taking up the challenge, because I know what it is like to leave a country of development and come to help develop your country. And I am very proud to be his chairman. Good morning and thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Caller, it's very easy and enjoyable interviewing Stephen, I'm sure Andre will agree, because, he seemed to be a man who knows exactly the clear vision, his thoughts are clear and he knows exactly what he's about. Interviewing him seemed to be so easy,
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So I was continuing to say that in terms of espousing that he wants to see the citizenry uplifted, and this is something I want to hear more from politicians, because you are representing. This is what you are doing. When you put your hand up and the people give you their vote,
Yes.
the vote is for you to make their life better. Mm-hmm. I have no problems if you're getting better, but you must make the country number one go forward, and then you have to make the lives of the citizens go forward. So, Stephen, I'm just going to leave with this to you. I don't think I've ever said that to a man, Falis, on public, but I think I could definitely say I love you, my brother, because what you are saying is so refreshing. And I hope you could infect. I mean, usually you don't want to use that word, but I hope you could infect how you feel to the rest of the team. And then once you have gotten in, we could move the country forward, because we are definitely in a state of decadence at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you so much.
I just want to remind you, Andre and I were the ones who provided that great guest for you. Anyway, do we have a caller?
Yes, we do.
Yes, good morning, caller. Welcome to Meet the Opposition. Could you go ahead and make your contribution, please?
Yes, hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Paul. Good morning, Mr. Favre. Good morning, Spider.
Morning, sir.
Mr. Favre, I saw a post you did on social media regarding the conditions of a footpath and the need for railings, etc. And I was wondering, as you are on air now, if you can tell us in your distinguished career over the years, as you have been successful, at least one project that you have ever done for the people of Castries North, or in fact, even for St. Lucia to uplift the people. Secondly, even now, since you have become the endorsed candidate, give us at least one actual project that you have ever done for St. Lucians you care about so much. I will end the call and listen to your response offline. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, it's a good question. I think if you I think all questions, all concerns have to be brought to the fore. So I invite all questions. Look, you may know that I just entered the political arena recently. So of course my vocation previously was not a politician, and I of course didn't have a responsibility necessarily at the time to act in a way which would be reflective of those responsibilities politicians have. But I have, and I'm proud of it, that those people who have monitored my career, at every moment I've tried to ensure that St. Lucia, whether through representation, whether through training, whether through activities. I'll give an example. It's a good example. During COVID, and I think Dr. Didicus Jules could verify that, I was the first one to negotiate with the International Atomic Energy Agencies for ventilators for St. Lucia. That's a fact. That's a fact during COVID.
Let me interrupt you to say.
I will go further. Hold on.
Okay.
I used some of my contacts, business contacts, to get hundreds of thousands of dollars for PPE for us in St. Lucia. Fact. I've brought scores of people to Geneva for training. Fact. I have employed people and had internships for them in Geneva, training. Fact. So, caller, don't come and ask me what I've done for St. Lucia. My whole life has been committed to this country.
When you say people, you're talking about St. Lucians?
St. Lucians. I've worked for this country. I've committed to this country. So because I didn't build a railing, you're telling me you have a representative here for 30 years and you cannot do, and you challenge me what I have done for my country? I've served with distinction. Go on my Facebook, my private Facebook and my LinkedIn. See what the ambassadors in Europe are saying about me. I served my country with distinction and I helped where I could, and I will continue helping. And you know what? Please call me. We'll sit down, have a coffee or tea or whatever. I'll buy it myself, and let's discuss the things that I have done in the best interest of this country. And I want your support. I want your vote as well. And I'll show you not only what I have done, but the things I intend to do for the people of Castries North. So please disregard my tone, because I'm very passionate about my country. I'm very passionate. It means a lot to me. I don't ever want to be accused of being a carpetbagger. I don't want to be accused of not doing what I'm saying I've done. So call me. I'll sit with you. I'll walk you through my life, my experiences, what I have done for the country, what I've done for the OECS. And then we could decide whether you want to support me or not. But I want your vote, because I think you care for the constituency. Maybe your question didn't come out in the way which you would have wanted it to, but I care deeply, and I want to work with you to show you what I've done and hear from you how I could be better and do more with you, including with you, in the interest of the people of the Castries North.
And caller, it is not only infrastructural development that is important. Some of what he mentioned is even more important. He didn't say it in those words, but he actually did things that save lives in St. Lucia, and that is more important than anything you can imagine as far as I'm concerned. So do we have another caller?
Yes, we do.
Yes, good morning, caller. Welcome to Meet the Opposition. Please go ahead, make your contribution.
Good morning, Andre. Good morning, Mr. Montoute, and good morning to the next parliamentary representative for Castries North, Mr. Stephen Favier.
Morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Mr. Favier, I'm so proud to be a member of the United Workers' Party. It shows the caliber of candidates, the caliber of people that the United Workers' Party can attract.
Call to me, never said that when I was a candidate.
It shows that the United Workers' Party is a visionary party. When I listen to you, Mr. Ferrier, your level of expertise on the international scene, I'm already looking at the possible cabinet positions, and I can see you as the next Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Relations.
Wow!
Because that wealth of experience that you bring in, and like you rightly said, your giving back to country is well documented. Even out of the politics, you have served the country with distinction, and I'm saying Castries North, the constituency, is in safe hands with Stephen Favier. I want to ask you a quick question. We know this whole CIP scandal is affecting our international image, where billions of dollars have not been accounted for. Mr. Felipe Martinez is all over social media. It's well documented. As a diplomat on the international scene, what's your take on the ramifications or the repercussions with this whole CIP scandal, the corruption? What's your view? Because you're out there internationally and you're hearing what maybe the diplomats and the persons the movers and shakers of the world, the financiers, the guys who make things happen internationally. What's your take? What are the repercussions or the consequences, bearing in mind that this current Labour Party government refuses to clear the air on the CIP scandal? Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you for the words of encouragement and support. But to your question, let me go directly to your question. Look, I think even the EU Parliament is reviewing access arrangements, visa access arrangements to those countries who would have had, who continue to have citizenship by investment programs. So those countries who have visa-free access or have a visa waiver for the Schengen area, there is ongoing, as I understand it, reflection on whether that access should be maintained. In other words, they are now monitoring those countries who have these programs and scrutinizing them a lot more closely. Why? Because it becomes a security risk. Typically, if you, as a St. Lucian passport holder, you are going to the U.S., I mean, they would have a specific security profile for you. Are you going to overstay? What do you have family? When you have those CIP programs, particularly those who are not seen to be managed effectively, where due diligence and it may not be what it should be, then your security profile changes because you really don't know who that St. Lucian is. So there can be, future changes in access to the European market. There could be changes to access to other countries, which we now benefit from visa-free travel to. Let me be very clear. I'm not saying this is imminent. I'm not saying this may even happen. I'm only saying that there is ongoing reflection on the security profile of the region, specifically St. Lucia, as it relates to the passport regime. The other thing which I think it also cheapens our passport. I think currently we have access to, 140 countries, which is good compared to other developing countries. And that's why there's value in the passport. But because of the way the passports have been dealt with, it cheapens the prestige of the passport. That's my personal view. So look, the security profile is changing. There's ongoing review and reflection on access to major countries for security purposes. But more importantly, and I think this is for me the biggest point, it really cheapens the prestige associated with our passport and how we are seen. So, these programs particularly ours, will have to be reflected on, reviewed, and determinations will be made in the future as to how, if at all, they are dealt with.
You have 2 calls on hold.
Yes, okay. Good morning, callers. Sorry for holding, but you understand how it goes. Welcome to Meet the Opposition. Please go ahead and make a contribution.
Hello.
Yes, hello. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning, guys. Andre.
Morning.
Mr. Savory and Mr. Montoute.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me just get straight into it because the line is long.
All right.
So, you guys rightfully condemned, distanced yourselves from colorism, racist platform rhetoric, right? You guys did so, and I think it's the right thing to do.
All right.
But I still want to ask Mr. Savory a question along those lines. Are you, Mr. Savory, black like Philip J. Pierre? That's my question.
I black like Philip J. Pierre.
Okay, let me elaborate.
Explain it. Please.
I'm a black man, dark skin, and I wear proudly all of the physical traits and characteristics of my African ancestors. I'll tell anybody, I'm proud to be black, and even black like Philip J. Pierre. I'm surprised, Spider, is not ringing a bell, because just a few days ago, your colleague, Mr. Timothy Mangal, Stephen would know he's a former UWP candidate.
No,
and even
sir.
as
No, sir. No, sir. He's a former SLP candidate.
And as well as but in any case, let's move past that.
No, I just corrected you. I mean, in any case, he was a former SLP
He shares a
candidate.
platform with you now.
Yes, so probably still
He
have
shares
some
a
traits.
platform with you, and he referred to a section of the Castries in East constituency. You've been listening. He referred to a section of the Castries East constituency as being black like Philip J. Pierre. So, I want to ask you, Stephen, are you
Just a
black
moment.
like
He referred. Could you just repeat that, please, for my benefit? He referred to.
Sure. Timothy Mangal
Yeah, he referred to.
a section of Castries East as being black like Philip J.
All right.
Pierre.
Okay, got you.
Let me just go further. He was given an opportunity on a different radio program to sort of clarify distance himself. He didn't. He doubled down, and he doubled down again as recently as this past Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. Stephen, you just and Spider supported you, condemned and rightfully so racist colorism rhetoric. This was said on a UWP platform. It shouldn't be said on any political platform, but it was said recently on a UWP platform. Stephen, you are a candidate hoping to serve in a UWP cabinet at some point in time. You tout all the virtues of transparency and accountability just a while ago. Tell me, how do you, as a UWP candidate, treat what was said by Timothy Manga, who is not the first to use that kind of language on a political platform? I'm listening.
Thank you. Thank you, caller.
Thank you. Thank you for the very important question.
One more?
Yeah. Could I answer first?
Go
Or
ahead,
do you want,
please.
is it connected?
Just hold on and let him answer you.
I'll hold.
So, first of all, I don't have the benefit of having heard what you suggest has been said. So I can't respond to the circumstance, situation, words which I did not hear or internalize. So I'm very sorry. What I can say to you is if there is anything which is said, whatever platform, blue, pink, red, or yellow, or if it promotes something which is divisive, destructive, or not in keeping with the values which I subscribe to, which is unity and bringing the country forward, is not something that I would support. But I can't speak specifically to the comments which I have not heard. But I will listen out for them, and then maybe we could at a later date tell you whether or not I reject them or I endorse them.
Okay, let me give me one more, and I'm out of here. One more. Now, Stephen.
Tell me.
All right. Let's say in a different reality.
Hypothetical question.
Hypothetical. Well, listen to it, and we'll determine if it's hypothetical or not. Say you are serving in a cabinet.
Correct.
And let's say Spider is the prime minister. Spider has to go on some state business overseas, and you are acting prime minister for the days out. Spider comes back to St. Lucia to discover that whilst he was gone, you, Stephen Savory, issued nearly 30 direct awards in less than 24 hours. Again, I remind you of your comments earlier about transparency and having to account to the people and explain all of activities government ministers engage in. I want to hear from you. How would you treat Spider if he issued 30 direct awards one day after you leave him in charge as acting prime minister?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Although you cannot mix up the question, you said I was prime minister, now you demote me, man. Anyway, go ahead, Stephen.
So, look, I don't like to engage in hypothetical exercises, but what I would say to you is I don't know the context. I'm not sure if there were previous discussions. I
That's
don't know
correct.
if they,
That's the point.
if
That's the
these
point.
were legitimate contracts. I have no idea. If they were good contracts and they provided jobs and they were in best keeping with best practice, then they're great. If it was something else, then of course I would have different reflections. But I think hypothetical exercises for me are not necessarily helpful. What I would suggest to you, sir, is there are real concerns about transparency and government ministers enriching themselves. There are real concerns about government ministers verbally assaulting women on the airways. There are real concerns about people right now being displaced and losing their livelihoods in Banans Bay, close to the Aliyah development. There are real concerns, a livelihood concerns. So, I don't know. I would like to engage you and entertain hypothetics. But look, St. Lucia is at a crossroads. Things are difficult. Things are hard. People are concerned. People are concerned about their livelihoods. People are concerned about maintaining a presence and connection to the land that they earned a living from. These are the questions I find more appealing at this point. Let's discuss what's happening here. The enrichment of ministers, the lack of transparency, the poor service delivery at the hospital, the fact that right now at the airport at Uranora, it is a national embarrassment. You have people, I came on a flight on Monday, we landed, people excited to come off the flight, save them money, maybe some of them work in all manner of jobs, invested, waited, saved. We landed. Soon as the aircraft door opens, the heavens open. Rain like mad. You have these people walking in the rain. That's how we receiving our guests. That's tourism. And this man is asking me about hypothetical questions about direct awards. Seriously? Is this a level of our thinking and analysis and care about the country? Trying to score cheap political points?
Stephen, for the
political point. You know how embarrassed I was? You know how embarrassed I was? You have these people coming in from London 8.5 hours on a plane. Save their money to come here. Save their money. And you have a prime minister and you have a minister of infrastructure who happens to be, Andre, the minister with responsibility for SLASPA. And this disgrace, which continues to be perpetuated, which is no future planning, no willingness to address fixing the infrastructure at Uranora Airport and giving people care and comfort when you invite them to your home. You're inviting people to your home and you have the decency to provide. A good welcome for them. These are the things that I'm concerned about, not hypothetical discussions about things which may not happen. We need to be serious.
Okay, Stephen, I want to get as many callers to get a chance to speak to you as possible. So we have another caller on the line. Good morning, caller. Welcome to Meet the Opposition.
Hello, good morning.
Yeah,
Hello,
please go ahead.
Mr. Fevrier.
Hello.
Yes, let's talk some reality now, Mr. Fevrier. Now, since we've been talking about international affairs and that is where you're strong in. And I'm asking now, with the situation that's going on with Taiwan, with China threatening to invade Taiwan, and the situation in Israel and Palestine, and the situation with our passports and the degrading of our passports and on our international level, because since our passports worth something, so it's leverage. I believe, for me as a citizen, I think we should stop the passport program, the CIP, just crash it on a hole, and go into a phase called leverage by investment. Taiwan, for me personally, today, St. Lucia could be the first country in the world to fully recognize Taiwan as an independent country, but Taiwan need to invest in our country when it comes to manufacturing the chips. I want you to answer me to see if it's visible. So the chips manufacturing, you know about Taiwan. If you just go on YouTube Taiwan, you see they'll have the automotive days. It is just a fully industrialized island, just like our island. And all we can ask Taiwan in return is to in case of an invasion from China, whatever, bring your factories to St. Lucia, bring your manufacturing base to St. Lucia, teach our citizens. Hundreds of St. Lucians go to Taiwan every day, make programs to go to Taiwan every year, because if we're the first country to recognize Taiwan, then it will be a very, very plus, because we can just stick with Taiwan alone and then our country will be the first world country. Let us look at Israel now. There's a situation with Palestine. I understand the situation. I understand the war. But if you now, as a diplomatic guy and whatnot, we must reach out to the Israelis, because if we reach out to the Israelis, then the Americans will reach out to us. Now, I heard you talk about the changes because the manufacturing changes by America taking back in manufacturing base and bringing it back to the West. What is happening there now, I believe, is the new trade lines for goods and services to pass. So American and Europe are redirecting the goods and services. That is why America took over the Panama Canal and what is happening there. So I believe with the deep ports, moving the ports to Calisac and those different things, we can, and the opening of Grenada, Guyana with oil and gas, we can be a major oil and gas refueling point. We can be a major, for example, trade point for the U.S. goods and services. We can be a major manufacturing in chips from Taiwan. We can be a major investor. Israel can be a major investor to the Caribbean just by forming bondages and friendships with those countries, because in a crisis, when nobody comes and look out for you.
Try to condense it, caller, so that he can get a chance to answer.
Okay, no problem. I'm done.
Right.
No, look,
while you're answering, let me just take a call. Go ahead and answer you.
Okay. No, I love the question. I like that this is a constructive and positive question, looking at the future of the country and the interests of the people. So thank you for that. Look, lovely question. Of course, now there's a time of immense geopolitical flux, geopolitical strain. I think we have to think creatively how we could arbitrage what is taking place internationally to benefit the people of St. Lucia. And of course, there will be a reflection and a review of existing and future relations. And of course, that would be done, with the guidance and concert of the cabinet, which will be formed. But certainly, I think there are opportunities with non-traditional allies, allies which may bring significant economic value to St. Lucia. And that is something which I believe we'll be reflecting on. As it relates to Taiwan and China, I think that is the foreign policy in that area is very clear. Of course, there will be opportunity in the future to holistically assess relations with all partners and see how those relationships are benefiting the people of St. Lucia, and see what the optimal solution is for St. Lucian people, what the optimal solution is for the level of capital investment which is required to bring the country forward, to ensure that the infrastructure which is required, with the investments in manufacturing or other sectors which are required. So, of course, that is an ongoing process of reflection, to revisit, to relook, and to assess what those partnerships are. I think it's important that St. Lucia is a small country, and it is important that our diplomatic partners do not unduly involve themselves in our politics, and we need to ensure that all actors who are resident in St. Lucia, who we have relations with, acting in a manner which is consistent with diplomatic best practice, which is not leveraging resources in a way which would adversely affect the sovereignty of our country. So that's what I would like to say about China, Taiwan. Yes, you make a very powerful point because of the changes in the tariff structure. One of the things which we see happening now is that DR has become a very important nearshore jurisdiction. So there are, because of DR-CAFTA, which is a free trade agreement with the U.S., between the Dominican Republic and some Central American countries and the U.S., there's a lot of investor interest. And I had a conversation with the ambassador of the Dominican Republic on Sunday past, and the interest is huge. However, of course, it takes quite a bit of time to establish and scale up industrial capacity. So these are 10-year economic plays. But of course, and it's uncertain whether the existing tariff regime, which is 10% across the board, would be maintained, or whether there would be a new settlement. But there is a great interest, particularly in the Dominican Republic, for investors seeking to nearshore production and using the distance, proximity to the U.S. to leverage opportunities. I think in certain sectors where we have an advantage or we have the scale to do so, I think there could be some reflection on that.
Sorry to disturb you,
yes.
but we have to wrap up.
Okay, very
Yes.
good. There could be reflection on that, but it is a good observation, and it's something which I believe we will have to reflect on and see how we could benefit, create benefits for our people. Thank you.
Okay, but before I allow you to give your parting words, Stephen, there's something that I think it would be remiss of me if I do not address it, and there's this question that was asked of you as to acting Prime Minister, if I was Minister and you were acting Prime Minister, signing several direct awards and so on while I was out. And so let me just say, as someone who has acted on many occasions as acting Prime Minister, I just want to clarify that situation. Those documents would have been vetted, thoroughly vetted, okay? And when it comes to the acting Prime Minister, which I have been on several occasions, I would in fact get in touch with the substantive Prime Minister, okay, to discuss it with him before signing. It's not just done arbitrarily where Stephen would have the opportunity to act as acting Prime Minister and just does as he pleases and so on. That would go through the process of being vetted first of all, and then Stephen now would be in consultation with me where we can discuss this before he goes ahead and sign it. I just needed to make that clear and needed to clarify that matter. Stephen.
So we have 2 minutes.
Yes, Stephen, it was an absolute pleasure, and let me quote my callers, refreshing to have you in studio today. I want to give you the next minute and a half to just give me your parting words to my listeners and viewers.
Thank you so very much. It is an immense pleasure. And congratulations, Andre, on Rev-Up. I'm a big supporter of you.
Thank you.
I really like your setup here and the warm reception.
Hope you come back.
You're the boss, so let me know when you want me to come back, and I'll make myself available. So thank you for the warm reception, and congratulations on your radio station.
Let me just say that Andre will be inviting you in the near future to meet the minister.
Very good. And to my host, Spider, it's really been a treat. We've spent quite a bit of time together, and I'm just always really impressed by your warmth, your ability to go through the issues, your conviction about the development of St. Lucia. Let me speak to St. Lucia.
Yeah, 30 seconds.
And Castries North. Castries North, change is coming. We are going to develop the constituency. We're going to do the things which have not been done. We're going to give you the relief that you need. We're going to ensure that the things which have been neglected are taken care of. I want you to hold me, Stephen Fevrier, to account on my words. I want you to hold me to account. Give me the opportunity to serve you. I don't want to be your boss. You will be my boss, and you will have me account. Look, St. Lucia, we need to change. We need to change course. We need to develop this country. We need a big new vision under Alan Chassnney. We need to get it done, and we need to work with you. Thank you. Change is coming to Castries North. Remember that.
All I have to say now is thanks to all our viewers and listeners. And before, let me end by just saying congratulations to Alan Chassnney, who has been appointed on the board of the IDU, International Democratic Union. Another endorsement of your leadership qualities.
Change is coming.
Thank you, Ms. Spider Montoute, and also thank you, Stephen Fevrier. Thank you. Listen again next week, Thursday, same time, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. for another Meet the Opposition. Now stand by for Papa Used to Say. That's a sponsored program coming up in just a moment.